After the Gonzaga game, I jokingly said that Carolina needed some of the magic of Gonzaga's second half run to rub off on the Tar Heels. And boy, did it.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, live postcast edition, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, and you're joining us at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. Thanks for making us your post-game choice to hang out and celebrate Carolina. Special shout out, by the way, to all of you everydayers out there. All right, let's get right into this thing. North Carolina beats Michigan State 85-69. The Tar Heels are now 29-7 this season. They are making it to their 31st official Sweet 16, the most of any program all time. Look, Michigan State was preseason number 4. They didn't have the year they wanted. Very similar to what happened to Carolina last year. But in round 1, they played some of their best basketball of the year. So this was not going to ever be a cakewalk. But Carolina did a phenomenal job. You love to see it. Tom Izzo factor, one of the greatest coaches of all time. His 26th straight NCAA tournament. That's the the longest streak ever. And Carolina sends them home to East Lansing. I'd gotten some blowback earlier in the week for mentioning on Twitter that Carolina was 5-0 all time against Michigan State in the NCAA tournament. Bring on the jinx, baby. The Tar Heels are 6-0. I can handle all of it. Speaking of jinxes and superstitions, for those of you that are with us all the time, I've been wearing the same outfit every Saturday. And last week, it let us down. So I had to switch. So this week, I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt. Figured it's getting warmer. And so I'm not trying to be wearing a hoodie all the time. And just a little hat. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, Carolina can play 2 more Saturdays this season. Tar Heels are now 13-4 all time against Michigan State. And now Carolina is headed to the Sweet 16. It'll be out west in Los Angeles. A great opportunity to go hang out on the West Coast. We don't know the opponent yet because that game is tomorrow. It's Alabama or Grand Canyon, who beat St. Mary's last night, by the way. And so that game between Alabama and Grand Canyon, if you want to kind of do some scouting, is Sunday night at 7:10 Eastern. All right, gang, here's what we do in our live postcast. Let me set it up for you. I'm going to give you 4 takeaways from this game. We'll have an ad read. We'll do 4 more. And then I want to come to the comments section and see what kind of questions and observations you have. We'll hit some of those, and then we'll get out of here and go see what else is happening in the NCAA tournament. NC State was beating Oakland when I came in to record this. Iowa State had just beaten Washington State, and Tennessee and Texas were just getting going. All right, as we get into this, let me go ahead and bring up the box score so that we can watch that as we talk. All right, you see the box score for those of you who are watching. If you're listening back to this later, you can just pull up the box score wherever you're at. All right, number 1, first thing we got to get to. There is nowhere else we can start than by talking about the first half run. It was so funny because I hope that you saw the Gonzaga-Kansas game before the Carolina game. It was very, very good and tight first half. Kansas was up 1, and then Gonzaga just blitzed them in the second half. And so I jokingly said in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord just before the tip-off of our game, hey, you think some of that magic run could rub off on the Tar Heels? And as the Carolina game started, it didn't look like it would. Michigan State, as we all know, got out to that 26-14 lead. And you guys, it was like, this just might not be the day. Michigan State looked hot in round 1. Maybe they got it going, and Carolina ain't going to have it. But I wrote in my notes in all bold, italicized, underlined, what Carolina needs to do at this point at 26-14 is trust the process. You can't make a 12-point shot. You know what I mean? It's one of those where you just got to stack possessions, get a stop, get a score, get a turnover. The defense feeds the offense, all of those kind of things to work yourselves back into this game. At that point, Carolina was not playing tough enough. They were allowing Michigan State to get into the paint at will and kind of have their way. That was one of the big concerns for me coming in. Would Carolina be tough enough against an always always rugged Michigan State team. I love to watch the Spartans play. I just don't like it when we play them because they're tough. And Carolina doesn't always have a reputation for being as tough as Michigan State is. But this team has been all season. They weren't early. And you all saw, for those of you watching on TV, you all saw the interview with Hubert Davis coming out of that timeout. And he was like, he didn't even let Allie LaForce get the question out. He was already so fuming and was talking about Carolina needing to get better. Then he storms off to the huddle. And then from there, Carolina got tough enough. They weren't, but then they were. And look, you're rarely going to be the aggressors against Michigan State. It's just that you got to match their aggressiveness. And I thought Carolina really did the rest of the way. Consequently, Carolina went on a 26-5 run the rest of the half to lead 40-31 at halftime. Oh, by the way, Cormac Ryan scored the first points of the second half on a 3. So that made it 29-5 run. Mixed in there, the Tar Heels were on a 17-0 run at one point. And so just a phenomenal turnaround to this game, and that was key and that was critical. We can unpack some of the specifics of it. We'll do that on Monday's show, but right now just want to say how important that run was. And it was one of those things where Carolina, you just feel like if you can get back to within like 4, you're in a good spot. Carolina did that. And then you think, all right, let's get this game tied or within 1. They did that. And then you think, all right, now we got to get over the top. It just felt like, I'm curious if you all felt this way. If Carolina could just get tied or take a lead, they'd be fine. And that's exactly what happened. They were down 1. Mondo got fouled, hit 2 free throws. And I said out loud, now we got a ball game, right? That's when it came up and happened. So, and it was a great end to the first half. Carolina got a stop just under a minute to go. Then they got a Harrison Ingram 3, and then they got another stop as Michigan State tried to race down and get one more bucket. And so it was a phenomenal run, one that regardless of what happens the rest of this season, let's say Carolina makes a Final Four, let's say they make it to the national championship or win a national championship, we will look back on that moment, that first half run, and say Carolina had to survive that so they could do this. I liken it, at least in real time here. This is the first I've thought of it. But remember the 2017 national championship, round 2. Who was Carolina playing? Arkansas. They were down, 5 with like 2.5 minutes to go. Coach Williams took a timeout. Carolina made a couple plays. There probably should have been a push off or a travel called on Joel Berry, but there wasn't. Carolina wins that ball game and goes on to win the national championship. Like, this could be one of those moments that we look back on in the history of North Carolina as a critical run. So keep your eye on that. And then obviously in the second half, Michigan State, man, they got punched in the mouth. Carolina grew the lead to 15. And before you knew it, it was down to 2. Michigan State closed it to 48-46, but the Heels just methodically pushed it back out. Great job. All right. Number 2 observation from this game. I've been talking about this question a lot. But you have the experience this postseason of RJ Davis and Armando Bacot, and they showed up. But the question is going to become game in and game out. Who's number 3? In round 1, it was Jae'lyn Withers. What a game he had. In this game, you already know who it was. Say it with me wherever you are right now. Harrison Ingram. What a game. And all the more cool for him because he had been kind of quiet of late. Not that he'd been bad, just not putting up like monster numbers. This game felt so similar to his performance in the first Duke game, where he set at that point a career high 5 made threes, which he tied on Saturday night as Carolina knocked off Michigan State. So for good reason, it felt very much like that game. I loved that 5th 3-pointer, how it just spun around, toilet bowled, and eventually fell through. Harrison finishes with 17 points, 6 of 11 from the field, 5 of 7 from 3, 7 rebounds, and 1 steal. What a performance. What a job he's done this season. I love it. If you're an opposing coach, you don't know where that third guy's coming from, where that third production's coming from. And I love that for Carolina. Good luck figuring it out. Now, I know they were saying on the broadcast that Tom Izzo was very concerned about Harrison Ingram, and clearly it was for good reason. You love to see it. By the way, Cormac Ryan for 2 games in a row now, has been the quiet fourth guy. I believe it was 13 points on Thursday against Wagner, and was it 14 points from Cormac in this one, who hit 2 threes. So really, really good stuff from both of those transfers. Number 3, as we're unpacking this game, I already mentioned his name, but Armando Bacot. What a performance from Armando. 18 points, 7 rebounds, no double-double. But in many ways, he was the key factor in this game, more so than RJ Davis, the leading scorer, more so than Harrison Ingram, who was that third scorer X factor. Why? Because there was a multitude of things that Armando did, even beyond just his scoring and just his rebounding, which wasn't like elite level, a gajillion rebounds for him. You look at some of the peripheral stuff. Armando, 3 assists, just 1 turnover. You think about some of those assists. For example, early in the second half, Michigan State started doubling him. So Armando's like, cool, I'm going to facilitate. Kicked out to Cormac Ryan for a 3. I think it was like the next possession, maybe 2 later. Same thing, doubled, boom, Harrison Ingram, 3. Armando's just facilitating. And so it kind of turned into like the same dilemma Carolina had with DJ Burns last Saturday. Michigan State's like, you want to leave Armando alone? Awesome. There's an easy layup, or he gets fouled and go to the free throw line. You want to double him? Cool. He's going to kick out to somebody or find somebody cutting. So it was a real dilemma for Tom Izzo. We know how that felt for us last Saturday against DJ Burns, so I can only imagine how Michigan State felt trying to deal with Armando. Another critical thing he did was Armando picked up, I think it was the second possession of the game, picked up an offensive foul. You know how many more fouls he had the rest of the first half? Goose egg, 0, despite the fact that he still played a lot of minutes, despite the fact that he had 2 blocks and did a lot of things. He is so veteran and savvy that he knows what he needs to do now, and he does it so well. Let's also talk about Armando's free throw shooting. 8 of 10 in this game. He was 7 of 8 in the first half alone, a key factor in helping Carolina in that run we just talked about. For the postseason, the 3 ACC tournament games, the 2 NCAA tournament games, Armando was 27 of 34 from the free throw line. That's 79%. That's so good from him. So really, really good performance from Armando. Fourth observation about this game is Carolina's bench. Now look, it wasn't an overwhelming scoring day from the bench, just 10 points. In fact, I think Michigan State outscored Carolina from the bench. Yeah, 14-10 in bench points in favor of Michigan State. But same thing we just talked about with Armando. There was so much peripheral stuff that Carolina's bench did to impact this game and impact winning. Let's start with Seth Trimble, who, he had 2 points, just that really nice layup. I think it was off a little pocket pass from Jalen Washington, if I remember correctly. J-Wash, who had 1 assist and no turnovers. Great job, J-Wash. But that was Seth's only bucket. But outside of that, man, his defense in this game was so good. Yes, I know it's the 3 blocks. Like, that's what we see first, all of which were important because Carolina retained possession on all 3 of those blocks because most of them were just right at the rim and looked like easy layups. And Seth, that first one in particular, man, that was just 2 dudes meeting up at the top and Seth winning that battle. And but it wasn't just the blocks. It was his just very aggressive man-to-man defense that he always plays and does so well. It's just him bothering people, getting up into people. Just thought he really did a good job. By the way, I think the box score, unless they've changed it, only credited Seth with 2 blocks. My man had 3. You all know it. Another thing I want to mention about the bench is Jae'lyn Withers. I was curious to see how he would follow up what I thought was his very best game as a Tar Heel. It didn't look promising early because he picked up 2 fouls in the first half. Michigan State was trying to exploit him, went to Malik Hall quite a bit, and they were having success against Jae'lyn Withers. They targeted him. But here's what I loved. There was a play in the second half where Carolina had a blob play, baseline out of bounds. There was 5 seconds left on the shot clock. They ran that action where Jae'lyn Withers kind of curls around, comes in for the block, or for the alley-oop, excuse me. The pass was too far back, so he had to corral it, and then he rushed the shot, despite there still being 5 seconds left on the shot clock. And I was like, man, it's just a rough day from Jae'lyn. But immediately, Immediately after that, here's what happens. On the other end, Michigan State goes the other way, comes back the other way. Armando had what I thought was a pretty easy layup that he missed. MSU gets the rebound. Jae'lyn Withers tips it away and knocks it off the Michigan State player out of bounds. Carolina regains possession. The result was an RJ3. It was the one that he banked in. Then part two, Carolina's next offensive position. Harrison Ingram misses a three. Jay Witt sneaks in for an offensive rebound and put back to push the lead out to 62-55. That's exactly what he was doing so much against Wagner. Offensive rebounds and put back. That's where Jae'lyn Withers lives. Oh, and then on the very next offensive possession, this is 3 straight offensive possessions for Carolina, has a great cut. Armando finds him. That was Armando's 3rd assist, gets the lay-in. Jae'lyn Withers really affected the game as Carolina was pushing it out in the second half. All right, good. Now, we need to get to our ad read. We got much more to talk about. I talked about the bench. I didn't mention Paxton Wojcik, and for good reason. We still got to talk about him. But also, Elliot Cadeau didn't have the game he wanted in his first ever NCAA tournament game. He turned it around in this one. We'll talk about that in just a second. But first, I need to tell you that this live postcast is brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets, which all of ours are at this point, except mine that says Carolina twice. That's all that matters because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the NCAA tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed like the Tar Heels, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, even betting on who's going to win it all. You might even want to go with the Tar Heels for that. Go find out what their odds are for a national championship or a Final Four, whatever you want to do. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. All right, we're getting right back into this. Let's get to our 5th observation. We'll go through 4 more, and then I want to turn to the comment section, which looks right now, by the way, like it is going off. All right, Thursday, in Elliot Cadeau's first ever NCAA tournament game, he was very disappointed with his performance. Voiced it well. You know how emotional Elliot is. He wants to do so well that he just gets so angry with himself when he doesn't. And I get it, man. I'm a perfectionist. I'm tough on myself. If I mess up something on a podcast or misquote a stat, like I get so angry and disappointed in myself. So I understand it from him. 3 assists, 4 turnovers in Thursday's game. 0 points, by the way, just 2 field goal attempts. Saturday, here's what he did. 4 assists, 0 turnovers against a Michigan State team that, man, they're aggressive, they attack, they do all these things. And Elliot, man, he's just so good at taking care of the ball normally. I feel like Thursday was the outlier. This is so atypical for freshmen, and I'm so proud of him. And also, Elliot did get his first points in his NCAA tournament career, finished with 6. But maybe you don't remember this, so let me point it out. The first half run, when Carolina was down 26-14, who got the points that got Carolina started? Elliot Cadeau. Came down, got a little mid-range J to fall, was fouled in the process, made the free throw. So, he got a big chunk to start that run that Carolina went on. They're down 26-14, but because of Elliot Cadeau getting that bucket and one, that's his first, was that his first points of the game? I can't remember. Forgive me. But that got Carolina within 9, got it down to single digits, and then they were off and running. Love that. Some other things he did really well. He drew an offensive foul on Holloman with about 7:10 left in the first half. That's Michigan State's freshman. I felt bad for him, man. He had a rough game, and Tom Izzo was all into him. But what was awesome was this was part of the run as well. He drew that offensive foul, and then on Carolina's ensuing possession, had a great assist to Armando to cut the deficit from 28-22 to 28-24. He had a blow-by on Holloman later in the game, had a block, finished with 6 points, was 2 of 3 from the free throw line, was so proud of Elliot. Let me give one critique, though, is clearly, as you watch this game, it was like often happened with Leaky Black in his career. Michigan State was sagging off Elliot. They were playing his drive, not his 3. And he was baited into taking what I thought were too many 3s. You want to test 1, maybe 2 to see where it was at. But at some point you have to say, buddy, you're open for a reason. Drive, take a mid-range shot, or drive, draw defenders, and then attack. Or maybe do what he did against Duke. If you're all alone, pass, go screen for RJ or Harrison, who was so hot. That's my one critique for Elliot in this game, but loved to see him have a successful game. I can't wait to see what happens in the Sweet 16. Number 6, speaking of turnovers, not only did Elliot have 0, North Carolina as a team had only 5 turnovers in this entire game. That ties a season low that Carolina did. I think it was twice previously. So this is the 3rd time doing that. But really interesting. Carolina has a great trend going. Remember those like 6 turnovers in the first half against Wagner? Well, Carolina only finished with 9 in that game. This is 4 straight games where Carolina's turnovers have been in single digits. That's the longest streak of games in single digit turnovers all season long. Carolina is holding onto the ball well and doing so at the perfect time. It was even before this stretch. It was already the best turnover percentage Carolina has ever had. In fact, the game has updated. Yeah, Carolina's turnover percent is down to 14.2 this season. That is 23rd best in the nation. You guys, they're doing that with a freshman point guard. Do you understand how bonkers that is? So good from Elliot and the rest of the team. So speaking of, as I said, Ken Pom has refreshed Carolina's up to 8th overall in the nation, 17th in offensive efficiency. That's coming down, and 6th in defensive efficiency. Great stuff there from the Tar Heels. Also, these 5 total turnovers, only 2 in the first half. That was great too. That was a big part of Carolina's run to get back in the game. Then they had 3 in the second half. Weirdly enough, all 3 of those were RJ Davis, who only had 1 turnover this entire postseason so far. So that's going to happen sometimes. That's just the game. And meanwhile, on the other side, Michigan State had 11 turnovers. And so Carolina led points off turnovers 16-7. That's a key stat in this game. Number 7 observation from this game, Paxton Wojcik. I was so happy for him, and here's why. I'm sure you know the storyline, but let me make sure you know that his dad, Doug, is an assistant for Michigan State. His dad was an assistant at Carolina in the Matt Doherty era. That's ultimately why Paxton came, or part of why Paxton came to North Carolina. And so it's tough, man, playing against your dad like this. You know, you saw, if you're watching, the big embrace the two had before this game. I can't imagine being Doug having to play against your son's team. He had the scout for this game. So he had to scout his son and put his son's game, warts and good and all, on the scouting report. That's so difficult. I think for me, it's got to be harder to be the dad than the son in this moment. But here's the thing for Paxton. He had a wide open 3. It was a great kick out. Who led the break on that? I can't remember. And he missed it. It was the right pass. I thought it was right for him to take that shot. Like, a lot of times you don't want Paxton Wojcik taking a 3 just because of the other guys that can do it. But in that moment, he needed to. He was wide open in the corner, didn't hesitate, pulled the trigger. Missed. It was a great look. I thought he needed to take it. But at that moment, when he took that 3, Carolina was up 1. They had just taken the lead for the first time off of Armando's free throws. On the very next defensive possession, Paxton had just missed that 3. He gets the defensive rebound. He leads the break. He kicks out to RJ in that exact same corner for another wide open 3. RJ buries it, and it builds Carolina's lead from 1 to 4. I thought, what a cool sequence for this dude who had a chance to build the lead to 4, didn't get it, but didn't hang his head. Meanwhile, Michigan State has a chance to regain the lead. They don't get it. You got to end defensive possessions with a rebound. He does. Leads the break. I thought, some lesser experienced players might have tried to lay it up in traffic, but he sees the ACC Player of the Year in the corner and knows that he needs to make that pass. He does. RJ hits it. Carolina grows the lead to 4 and then keeps pushing it out. That was a key and critical sequence in Carolina's first half run. Paxton Wojcik had a moment against his dad. I love to see it. Great stuff. Also, he had another assist, 0 turnovers, had another rebound in the game. Great stuff. And by the way, the 8th and final observation, all of this, and we haven't even talked about that ACC Player of the Year, RJ Davis, who led the team in scoring with 20 points. I love this because it means that so many Tar Heels are contributing so many things that we don't even talk about the leading scorer till the back end of this whole thing. And so I love that RJ's consistency just shows up again and again and again. You know, I mean, he in postseason play now in Carolina's 5 postseason games coming into this game was averaging 23.8. That's insane. Puts up another 20-point game. So in the postseason, here's RJ's point totals: 18, 25, 30, 22, 20. Come on, man. We'll take that. Also with his 3 threes in this game, right? Is that how many RJ hit? Let me check. Yes, 3 threes. That gives him 113 this season, continuing to grow the lead that he has all time in Carolina history. Okay, it's time for us to get to the comment section where my browser tells me that there are an approximate ton of them. So let's just take a couple. We'll get some questions and observations. If I don't get to yours, I apologize. We just can't get to all of them, but it is what it is. I love seeing all our regulars in here. Again, shout out always to all the everydayers out here. We love to see you guys. Drew Cagle said, we just kind of talked about it with RJ there, but let's give some of you guys a chance to say it. Drew Cagle. What's up, Drew? Cagle's Bagels. Who was the one? Drew. Hey, big thanks to Drew, who caught a segment on True TV the other day where it was like a video about Armando. They did a whole thing on him. And Drew caught that they had spliced out something from the podcast and used my voice on it. So that was really cool to get to see that. So, Drew, thanks for catching that. Anyway. Drew says, one of those games where multiple players deserve game balls in my book. Ingram, Withers, Trimble, right? Like it's so many people contributing to this game. This is not an iron 5. This is a true 8 with a little sprinkling of Paxton Wojcik in there, getting a couple minutes where he needs to. And I love that Carolina did so much that they were able to get the walk-ons in at the end of the game. Derek Thiessen, what's up, Derek? Always hanging out with us. Asks a great question and says, why do you think it took Hubert almost losing his voice to get us going and more locked in? Is that a concern going forward? You even heard, this is a great question, Derek. You heard RJ talk about this in his post-game interview where Ali LaForce asked him about it. And he said, yeah, once coach said that, then we really got going and got playing. Well, let's look at both sides of this. And by the way, I do want to unpack this more on Monday's show. So I'll just say a little bit about the fact that it did happen right here, and then we'll move on. Number one, that's a coach's responsibility. Sometimes, even when your team thinks it's ready, it's not a high enough level. And the coach has to recognize that and figure out how to tweak things, press the buttons, and get them going. So kudos to Hubert for being able to do that. Because some coaches, even with getting all amped, the players still don't rise to the occasion, but they did in this moment. So what Derek, I think what this means is that Carolina needs to understand a new level of what that edge is. Thankfully, they found their way to it in this game. And I don't think it's like that they weren't ready. I don't think it's that they didn't want to be dialed in. I just think perhaps they didn't realize just how dialed in and locked in it needed to be, despite the experience of guys like Armando and RJ. But believe you me, they will not make that mistake twice. They're going to have to be ready to go next Thursday, whether it's Alabama or whether it's Grand Canyon, who will be, by the way, if it's Grand Canyon, they're going to be so close to their home from Arizona just across to LA. So keep that in mind. So Tar Heels, please plan to be there if you can head out to the West Coast. So there you go. Let's keep looking for some, oh man, Derek brings this up as well. And I'm glad you said this because I wanted to point it out. Did you notice Harrison Ingram was guarding Malik Hall? Malik Hall took Harrison into the post early in the game, scored on him. I've always loved Malik Hall. He's had a struggle in his career, lots of injuries, scored on Harrison, and then too smalled him coming back down the court. And Derek says, my friend who is a Spartans fan texted me saying, quote, too small, bro. Then we went on that crazy run. So I thanked him. So Malik Hall did that. And I was like, I don't know if you should do that to Harrison Ingram, bro. And then we all saw what happened after that. So Malik Hall and Derek's friend, thank you for too smalling us. So we'll take it. Great stuff. Man, let's see if maybe we can just get one or two more questions and then we'll get out of here. Derek, sorry, it's just another great question. This one's from Derek again. Says, do we want Elliot to continue to shoot these wide open threes? I think he has to take some of them, but not every time. Yeah, Derek, I agree with you. Like, at some level, you have to if you're Elliot. You don't want to get baited into taking too many, but as I said earlier, you got to test it to see if you can get one or two, which is a bonus, right? Because I know the opposition, if you hit and you're Elliot, the opposition is going to say, all right, we can live with that. But I want him to take one or two because he is capable of making them. He is capable of getting a couple of those in. We've seen it this season, but he does need to know where the line is. He does need to know how to do that. And I think some of that's on the coaching staff to say, all right, you've taken a couple, let's put a new game plan together for when they're sagging off of you. So we'll see what that is. Well, yeah, that's it. So that's where we are there. It's so funny. Lots of good conversation in the chat about Elliot's 3-point shooting. So that's very funny stuff there. Man, good. Just lots of observations, not many questions. So I'll tell you what, we're going to get out of here on this one and get on with our night and enjoy and celebrate. You all, thank you so much for being with us. Man, obviously I'm going to try to wait to record Monday's show until after the Alabama Grand Canyon game is over so that we can begin to just start thinking about that a little bit and talking about it. And so just stay tuned for when we do that. Okay. Woo! If you're not in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community, you're missing out. Come join us. Come for the Tar Heels. Stay for the community. Love to see it. The link is in the show notes. It's free to join. We'd love to have you. If you're not subscribed to our show on YouTube or on audio, please do so. It's so easy to do that. Just subscribe in your podcast platforms. Hit subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, it's literally right there at the bottom right corner of the screen. Also, there's a bell notification. You need to hit that because it'll let you know when I go live. You'll get an app notification from YouTube, and then you just click on it, and it brings you right here. All right, you guys, Carolina is Sweet 16 bound. It's good to be back. Second time in the first 3 years of the Hubert Davis era. But sure, put this man on the hot seat. I love it. Nice try, everybody. Carolina has their coach. Sorry about you. All right. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Going to be a great week as we lead up to the Sweet 16 in Los Angeles starting on Thursday night. We'll talk again on Monday, but until then, peace.